Hello, my name is Lauren Sage Browning, and I haven't made a feature film about the dramas and horror stories of childhood.
Hello, this is wait, what do we say at the beginning? Indie Not Podcast. We haven't made it yet podcast. We're Indie Not Films.
That's us.
I'm Yannick.
I'm Hayden Garrett.
And today we got Lauren joining us remotely. She lives in London, where she's currently writing a book. She actually already finished the book.
But yeah, here we go.
All right.
Making it for me is when I'm able to make projects consistently that have legitimate social impact and not just impact within the art scene. And when I can hire my friends and give them all really great survivable paychecks.
That is a good one. Mm-hmm. I think we have a similar vein of like wanting to, we have so many talented people around us. And it's like, if we could give those people money as well as helping them continue to use their talents, like that is a goal.
And just being able to continue to work on your projects, you know, for me, no social impact, but just being able to continue to work on projects.
Totally. Yeah. It's just one of the things that I like find the most motivating, because if I'm trying to finish a script just for the sake of getting my ideas onto paper, I just won't do it. But when I think about the amazing artists I know and the brilliant minds that I know and that the world might not get exposure to, then like finding a way to create a platform for them to get to play is really motivating. And also I have so many great artist friends who've just like gone to the ends of the earth to make things happen inside of projects for me. And I just could say thank you and maybe make them some cupcakes, but I would love to be able to treat them the way that I think artists should get treated and valued. It'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you two know each other.
I could not have said that in a more weirder way.
Right?
We do a take two of that.
No. You two are artists, right?
Yep. We're acquainted. We're acquainted artists.
We're acquainted.
Maybe Yannick shares how he knows you, Lauren, and we go from there.
I met Lauren I was PAing on Star Trek, and just a couple days, and it was out in Santa Clarita, which is like a desert area on this outdoor set. It was this very cool alien market happening with like fake snow and all these cool effects and all these classical Star Trek characters, including green people in bikinis. And Lauren was one of those green people in like the, I don't know, what are they called? The like Star Trek, the race that's aliens? Like, no, they're like these green, almost Amazonian women with the black hair. Not Amazonian women.
Do not know.
There's it was some crazy weird alien word, but they've been in Star Trek stuff like throughout all of the Star Trek treks.
Yeah.
All the Star Treks.
All the treks. Yeah. And and Lauren was among that cluster. And it was my job to like wrangle the background, because it's the background PA, or helping the background PA that's usually there. And yeah, Lauren and I just hit it off and have been friends ever since.
That's true. It was probably the weirdest first impression I've ever made on someone, because I also wasn't supposed to be like half naked on that set. I was supposed to just be like a normal background person, and I showed up, and the twins they had cast to be scantily clad had bailed, and me and one other girl fit the costume, and so then they like stripped us down and painted a screen and threw us in platform boots, and I said, this is the last day I'm going to be an actor.
And then you did 4 more days.
Then I did 4 more days, and then that was the end of it. But Yannick would also just come over, like I'd be standing on set, and he'd just come over and like show me pictures of his life. And I didn't really know him yet, and he showed me climbing pictures and like random camping pictures, and I had no idea what was happening, because it was always like 2 a.m. and you just like creep up behind me and you'd be like, hey, you want to see a picture of me on a mountain? So that was the entrance of
well, it was also like 4 a.m. and because it was a night shoot, and it was really cold at the time, and you were wearing naked. Like nothing. It's so cold. And we were all just delirious, and it was but
was
But
kind of fun. I did sneak in hot like hand warmers, and was like the very little fabric that was on my body. I shoved hand warmers in, so it probably wasn't like a safe call. I don't know if I'll like, get like toxic exposure from that, but it was cold. It was really cold.
I'm pretty sure the snow that they were pumping into the air was maybe not toxic, but definitely not great.
But I think it was they were burning cattails, like the plant.
No. It was this weird liquid. I've never seen this before. This weird liquid that they pour into. No. It was not the liquid. It was these candles. So it was like almost like a flare that like a diving flare or something. And they would hold these sticks of it. They would call it candles. Light it, and the smoke of it. It was so weird. The smoke of it would start as smoke, and then it would solidify midair. The like smoke from it, and turn into like hard clusters, not heavy enough to go to the ground, but float. It's so weird. And it would have this really pungent smell to it. And they were lighting them back to back. There was like 4 or 5 special effects guys, just bags of them, just lighting them nonstop. It was like, we're rolling, and they would light like 6 of them.
In front of the fans too.
Just like those
Yeah,
smoke.
and then they would hold it into fans, and the fans would blow them into the set, into everybody's face, into all the minimum wage mouths.
So that might be a good segue of you said this was like kind of the beginning of the end of you wanting to be acting. What was the beginning in all this?
So I graduated with a theater degree and an acting degree. And my plan was never to be like a full-time actor. It was like to study theater so that I could create it. But the easiest entrance to that seemed to be an actor, and to just do the acting route for a while. And so it was like my first 2 years out of school were pandemic era. So I was doing a lot of extra work because that was like seemed to be the right way that everyone said to get your SAG card and do that stuff. So I was just plugging along and doing the extra work. And then I just got the beginning of the end was I got really sick of not getting to wear clothes on set. Is like the true answer is like I just kept showing up as an extra, and then they'd be like, oh, you're in a bikini, or oh, you're actually like it's just so minimal the amount of fabric I was given, and I like was not always aware of how little fabric was going to be given to me. And it's not that that's an issue to like have extras not wearing clothes. That's just like not what I wanted to be doing on a regular basis.
It was just the jobs that were kind of being handed to you. Did you have any kind of choice factor? If you said no, they would be like, okay, we'll just pick another one, or
yeah, I think
how
like
did that go?
the interesting thing about extra work is like everyone's so replaceable. And it's kind of the beauty of it. Like there is an art form to extra work and to like the masses contributing to large projects like that. But I did just feel like, I mean, I could have been like, no, I don't want to. And it's not, I wasn't like doing nudity. It was just like a lot of skirts and tank tops and swimsuits. And I think it was just also compounding on the fact that like for a couple years or for 2 years out of college, like all of the roles that seemed available or that I was getting sent or booking were for people's girlfriends or like sorority girl number 2, or like I worked quite a few jobs in those years, and never once was it a character with a job or with like that really was contributing to the plot or had an agenda or had something to say. So I guess, and like it's less about the point of like I wasn't getting to wear a lot of clothes, and more like I felt like at the entry level of what I was trying to find my way into with Hollywood, I wasn't getting to really be a storyteller. I was just being seen as like a young girl. Yeah. And being like utilized for that. And it wasn't like no one did anything like wrong. I just wasn't feeling like I was really getting to contribute to my artistry. And yeah. So, but like the just multiple times in a row showing up to sets and being handed less clothing than I thought I was going to wear is just like was the straw that broke my back because I was just tired of it.
Yeah, that would do it.
Yeah.
And that's too bad because I haven't done extra work on film, but I've done ensemble and live theater, and it's some of the best like backstories come from people who don't have lines on stage. Like I have some crazy like 5-page backstories of a character that is a hat seller in Beauty and the Beast and is like trying to find the guy who murdered his family and is tracking him down during like the whole Bonjour song at the start of the the musical.
That's so good. That also like prepares you to like be, I think, a writer is when you get to like in theater, like have those ensemble roles where like you're contributing to like the justification of like why you're a part of a project, but you don't have to like do the. I remember we did like 1989, the play version in high school, and like all of the freshmen were thought police. And I remember just like really caring about it. Like I was just like in like a Dickies jumpsuit and I stood on the side of the stage. But like you were saying, like you have so much context right in it. So important. That stuff's great. I love that stuff. Yeah.
Well, it gives you motive, and it's too bad that kind of doesn't transfer over. Maybe it does for some extras, but I would hope that if I'm an extra in film, that I could kind of try to develop some kind of thing of why is this person here, instead of just someone saying like, okay, you walk from there to there. Go walk, go.
I think some people are better at being extras. That's also something I just like felt like I wasn't cut out for it. It takes a specific skill set to be able to find like peace and joy within those days and like without really having much responsibility. And I think because so often when it's like a ton of extras on set, it's like a big budget production and everyone's stressed and I think actually too, that's probably why you and I became friends, Yannick, is because you were not freaking out and we could hang out while everyone else was kind of flailing. But I do think there's like an artistry to being an extra and that some people can nail it and like really contribute to the story and make things better and be natural and add that background. But I just couldn't.
No. The unsung heroes.
Yeah.
The PAs. But that was not your last. You did it for a little bit more before you transitioned to something else, right? Because didn't you do the Sex Life of College Girls or something like? Oh, and 911. Oh boy.
I did. I did one night of 911, and I got to wear clothes on that set, but it was overnight, and it was like again, it was just like there were just elements that I didn't want to be.
Yeah. You wanted to create more than it was allowing you to do.
Yeah, I think it's hard when you're on set and like you know what you want to contribute to like not be in a place where you're allowed to really have an opinion or be able to communicate something. I don't know. Do you guys feel like that ever when you're in a role on set that isn't like your desired role? Like if you're gripping and you want to be art directing or?
Well, I would say that even if you are in a role that you feel like you're impacting the story in some way, you only have so much control in that specific thing. Like you can't change your hat or you can't go out of your what do you call it, boundaries or something, or else you're a control freak and people don't want that. It's fun doing the like little short film side projects because like at one point you're a camera operator and then you need some talent. So you're like, okay, I got to step in and be talent. And just to get the project done, everyone's kind of stepping in to do something and everyone feels so a part of it.
That's
you just can't really get that.
Best.
It's funny that you thought that I was the only person not flailing, because I always get incredibly restless when I'm like we're talking about, don't get to like contribute anything and have all this energy of like I want to write or like, you know, like the classic, like somebody does something, you're like, I feel like I know how to like, would have been able to tell that background to like do something else, or like that when they make a shot with where the camera is, I'm just like, I'm not going to say anything because it's not my role to say anything, but I'm just like restless the entire time and going crazy inside my head. And I feel like you're similar to this. I'll just put all that energy into like more and more disappearing into my phone's note app and like we're just writing and my brain gets into this weird rhythm where it's just like I just keep going and going and going almost to the point where I'm going crazy from that, because I just get it's kind of like when you have your best ideas when you're taking a shit, because for the first time a little wisdom from my godfather, when he's out of ideas he goes takes a dump. But also when you're running, anytime where you can't do anything else because you're not allowed to, you know, you become, when boredom kicks in, the next thing to follow boredom is creativity, you know? So, but these days there's like so little opportunity to be bored because there's so many options. becomes a real mission to find that boredom, and then through that the creativity. So
That's a good point.
That's kind of
totally. And on set too, like you're bored and you have to be quiet, and you can't, like, you're stuck and bored. And I think that is like something that we just don't really experience very often, is like not being able to escape the boredom. So it makes sense. And I think too that, like, what you were saying, it's hard to watch problems happen and to feel like you're naturally inclined to be a problem solver. But because of like hierarchy and like paying your dues, and like also if everyone was just jumping in with ideas and solutions, nothing would ever get made, because that wouldn't be a shit show. But it's really a weird balance to learn how to not be a problem solver out loud when you're on those larger sets.
Right.
But motivation for sure to figure out how to, I think I don't necessarily think of like ideas when I was on those sets, as far as like, I wasn't like thinking about like plot points and stuff, but it is like a really good vantage point for thinking about how you want to run a set. You have to watch people run a set and be like, yes to that, no to that, yes to that. That's cool.
You really didn't come up with any of your, I guess it's a good segue into one of your books, Heart Gym. Yeah, which you said you wrote in a day. And I mean, it's not like all text, but it's all like, it's all questions, like kind of these deep, sometimes a little satirical, ironic, or sometimes just very like heartfelt and serious questions that I would think I would have, or I thought you were coming up with on set, just watching people interact. But
maybe in my subconscious, maybe I was watching the social dynamics play out and pondering it, and then it all came out when I was sitting at the reservoir. But it is the social situation of sets is always a loaded petri dish.
A loaded petri dish, yeah. But yeah, I guess we can get into the book. Which, if do you want to lead it in, or like explain a little bit why you thought of writing it, or like what made you decide to write this?
So it's not, calling it a book feels hefty. It feels like a dishonor or like a disservice to like people who've written novels. But it is a collection or a book.
It looks like a book.
It's it physically feels like a book to hold it. It's a collection of prompts for building emotional empathy and becoming more emotionally acrobatic. And I wrote it just because there were some people in my life that I wanted to help facilitate conversations that I thought they needed to have. And I think especially generationally, like, I'm very grateful to be in a generation that, for the most part, and in certain bubbles, like, really encourages emotional growth and emotional expression. And sometimes I think it is confusing to watch I say adults, we're all grown-ups, but like adults try to maneuver situations and not have the emotional like elasticity or vocabulary to connect with each other and to actually express themselves. And it was just a situation in my life where I couldn't be a mediator, but is that a word? Right? Moderator? Mediator.
Yeah.
Mediator is a word.
Both.
I used the first one.
Like, yeah, the
mediator seems
the
right.
Meat part of it just hit, and I was like, this
mediator.
Like flesh.
Yeah, like a butcher's assistant.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do that, so I thought I could write a book and give it to them instead. That was why I wrote it.
Yeah, I like it. That's awesome.
Pretty simple.
I got to go through it again yesterday, and it's interesting to see. Like, I feel like I'm a very emotionally inept person because of a long time in my life. Even as a kid, I've had to be independent. So like I've had to figure a lot of these things out in my mind. But going through the book, I see some questions where it's like, oh, I know the answer to that. And I just flip, like, it's just like,
right.
It just goes straight in. And then I flip a page and it's like, oh shit. And it completely just like takes me down. It's like, I gotta think about this real quick. Like, I don't know if I actually know this for myself.
It's like an oh shit coffee table book.
Yeah.
Like that was when you had your book party, that was kind of, I think, the reaction from most people, because you had a little release party and I think that's actually where you met Lauren too.
Yeah,
right.
no,
Yeah.
first
Yeah,
time.
wow.
People were like flipping through it laughing, and then I just saw like a couple people stop on a couple pages and be like, oh, and then just like flip along.
Not for tonight.
We're having fun tonight. Fun.
It's
a party.
not structured in a way where it's like one, like it doesn't build. I think it's like very ping pongy, which makes it a little bit conversationally just like there's not much of an equilibrium as you go through it. I am curious, so like as far as emotions, I guess as two male identifying people, do you feel like you grew up with the freedom to like be emotionally expressive? Do you think about the fact that like if you are emotional, do you try not to cry? Like what's your relationship to that?
I think I was always given the freedom to do that. My mom has always and still is on like the path of finding, how she would call it, emotional enlightenment. And so it's always been encouraged, and almost going the other way because of it, where like my version of rebelling, usually the stereotypical, like cold-faced or stone-faced parent that doesn't know how to deal with any situations or talk about emotions. The teenage rebellion to that would be to like do like rock and roll and cry on stage or whatever. For me, it was like almost the opposite, where it was always so encouraged and so a subject that I would almost go the other way and not get into that kind of stuff because of the opposite reason than most people, perhaps.
You'd like threat to get a business degree or something.
Yeah. It's like,
Come down wearing a suit.
I'm being a lawyer.
It's funny that
yeah.
It's funny you went into art after having that though. Like you went into one of the most emotional fields.
Yeah. Well, I think, that's just kind of speaking to that like little rebellious phase. Overall, I think I always have enjoyed the art and dealing with emotions. And I think that's what writing is also. It's just essentially just being a therapist in a way, except not with other people, but with imaginary people. But my true being is still engaging with that kind of stuff. It's just kind of was flipped for a while.
Yeah. I would say it's very similar to me where, I had two parents that just allowed their kids to express themselves. And I find out later that it's because like they had so much going on where it's like, hey, if they can keep themselves busy, then we can focus on like the shit show that's happening. But somehow it worked out so naturally where we it was hard to notice. Like I had the whole like Santa's not real talk many times, and I take that not with it's just Santa or the Easter Bunny, but I take that with like
he's not real.
No, with like when it comes to love, when it comes to any type of emotion, like my family just taught me, and just my parents taught me and my siblings that it's okay to kind of imagine, it's okay to believe in all of these things, that the true heart of it is not like from Santa to like true love, like all these things that we tell ourselves that are just a thing that exists. Like, yeah, there's just a guy that comes in to the chimney and like gives us gifts, like, and that's just what happens after year after year. And then the thing of, oh yeah, there's two people, they're met for each other and they just fall madly in love and happily ever after. And somehow I was able to believe that for most of my childhood.
That's so nice though.
I think in taking that, like, I don't think that changes me. It like, I now know, I think I still have slight facades from like having such a huge imagination, but I think from having that imagination, and imagination is so connected with feelings and emotion, where it's like I can't separate the two. So even though I have like a little bit of an understanding of like, okay, maybe like true love isn't like it's just a thing you see on a movie, I still, in the back of my mind, and my sister too, she's 33, 34. I wish I knew how old my sister was, but she still has the same kind of context. Like, she was like, I know it's not real, but in the back of my mind, I still feel like there's someone out there for me, and I hate it, but I can't take that away.
I think that's kind of beautiful, though. It's like a survival
Yeah.
method because the alternative is really depressing. Like living a life where
Exactly.
you don't believe in any sort of magical pre-contrived goodness is not something I'm necessarily interested in. I think it's nice to be able to be, it's not even naive. It's just like hopeful that there is something that just is good and happy. And that to me, like Santa was always this like idea of complete harmony and engaging with like just goodness in a way that doesn't make sense. And that's why I like, I'm not religious at all, but I've always loved Christmas because I feel like it's the largest act of theater. I feel like the whole world is in on it. Like there's literally a set and there are characters and there's a script and every household performs their version of it. And there's a time, right? Like curtain goes down, everyone goes to bed. And like, it's just, it is theater is what it is. It's a month-long theatrical world act. And I think it's beautiful. And I think stuff like that is necessary, just in the same way that some people like have their spirituality or their religion that just adds enough sparkle to the day that you want to do the day, you know, not enough to like blindfold you to the reality of the work that needs to be done, but enough to make it fun. I think it's cool that you still believe in true love.
Well, it depends what day it is. Wednesday? Yeah. I think it's
today.
Good. Yeah.
Today you believe in true love?
I think today. I think I do.
One day at a time.
One day at a time.
Do you think is true love different than love at first sight? Are those different concepts?
I think love at first sight is more of a chemical thing where it's just like, you know, you got that like chemistry and it nothing else matters. You have something's in the air or testosterone and pheromones. Everything's just working together. Snow. Everything's just working together to make it work. So I don't see that as like one and the same.
Okay, this is a helpful distinction.
What do you think?
Yeah.
If they're the same or if they're real?
Yeah.
I think they're different. I think love at first sight is an active thing that people feel. But I agree that it's not, I don't think love at first sight is love, but I think love at first sight is a moment of just inexplicable attraction and being on the same page. Like, I think it's a moment free of any friction or tension from disagreement and just being like, yes. So I think that happens. It's not like love to me is like compromise and sacrifice and merging of lives. So I don't think that can happen at first sight. But, and then true love, was that the other one? I don't think true love is, I don't think there's one person. I think you can experience that and create that with someone, but I don't think there's one person meant for you. And I also think we have like the great loves of our life, I think is a plural term. Like, I think we're meant to have many great loves of our lives and many true loves, I guess. I'm so much less cynical than I am usually actually about love right now.
Well, and it shows in your books too. I like the balance between the two. Like, I love the fairy tale nature mixed with like the hard cold reality of like how this world destroys us in the process. But we have to fight back to kind of try to keep our feelings, keep our emotions together. And you could do that with Heart Gym.
$14.99
$14.99 on Amazon.
I think it's $10.
$14.99 hard cover.
Use Lauren's code to get charged an extra $5.
I'm putting these in the description because this is the first time we can actually like sell a few things. So I'm putting all the books in the description. I feel like.
Thanks, guys.
I was just going to say, no, you go ahead. We'll get into it. Lauren has 3 books. She's written 3 books, right?
4 if you count the children's book.
Oh, right, the children's book.
Don't have that.
I actually bought the children's book and gave it away. That's why I thought
you
had
did.
to my cousin who doesn't speak English. So my cousin's child.
He loves it.
Yeah, she's like,
she loves it.
I'm gonna play with the cat that has robotic legs.
That's a little bit cooler than a book you can't understand.
It's a slow
good
burn.
attempt.
She'll get there.
I think this is a cool episode that we're doing because it's we've been in the film world pretty much every episode, and we are still there, but we're showing that like all your creativity doesn't have to be poured into film, TV, some kind of in that medium. Like you can have creative outlets all around and actually like implement them and put them out in the world. And you have done that 4 times with books, even as much as, I mean, you are still a part of this thing that we call film. You can be part of, it doesn't have to be just film. You can do all these other things. And one of you had a suggestion of all of us finding a question and then that we answer to somebody's with your book Heart Gym. So I think we do that, and then maybe we talk about the other 2 books for a bit.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I actually recently rediscovered my PayPal credit card and a debit card that I had lost as bookmarks in one of your books. And I was like, oh my God, these have been gone for like 6 months.
that really helps emotionally too.
That's excellent.
They're all back.
Yeah,
You're gonna get a little dopamine kick now every time you open it. Like there'll be a trigger of remembering you found
it'll be
money
something
source.
else. Well, all the other bookmarks are still in this one. Okay, I thought I bookmarked this one a long time ago, just because that kind of startled me. It was one of those oh shits. Do you ask questions out of genuine curiosity or because you want to be seen as the kind of person that would ask that question? How might you be disrespecting the time of others by asking questions that you're not invested in the answers of?
Hayden, do you want to go first? Or do you want me to dive into it?
So I did see this one, and it actually that's one of the ones that I just flipped straight through because I was like, yep, good, I'm good. I've always been someone comfortable with asking questions, and that's just part of my process of learning. And it's like I think if I have to put a character trait to me, it's someone that is just genuinely curious and would ask questions. And it's maybe it's in a selfish vein of like I just truly want to know some kind of benefit of me knowing this knowledge, because then I can take it in and then use it for my own gain. But it comes off in a way, I think that's one of the things that people appreciate about me, where because there's a sense of genuineness in the questions that I ask. And it actually, I think asking a question shows how much you've actually listened to a person, because
Totally.
if they can understand through the question, oh shit, this person's actually like taking these steps in validating me that exists in this reality. So I think that's why a lot of people tend to like when I ask questions, because they get that confirmation that I'm listening. But I'm doing it more in a selfish way of like just very curious. I just want to know.
That's selfish though. I don't know if being curious about someone is selfish. I think it's that everything you just said really adds up to all of the impressions I've ever had of you, which is like that you follow your curiosity, and it's really easy to be immediately disarmed around you because it doesn't seem like you have an agenda outside of just following the curiosity of the experience. Sounds like you're really well adjusted and healthy with how you ask questions.
With that question.
Do we have like a horn or something on the soundboard?
Oh wait.
Or like No, that's not a joke, Hayden.
That's all we had.
Or like an aww.
She couldn't hear that. I think we have clapping.
Oh, clapping would have been good.
I don't think Lauren can hear any of this.
Well,
I can't, but I'll imagine it. Good, I'm glad.
The clapping was happening. But yeah, but goes to you.
I think it's situational for me. So if it's a situation where I feel like there's a very specific role that I'm playing inside of the social dynamic, then I 100% ask questions to be perceived as the person asking that question. And I don't think that's a good thing. I don't like that part of my personality. But I actually recently just had a goal for a year to not meet any romantic partners' families, because I think I get way too into being defined by like how someone's family views me, and get way too much self-esteem from like not contriving, but like being able to control a reputation inside of like a social sphere. So I very much like spent a lot of my early 20s at family dinners asking questions that I thought would certain impressions.
Yeah, we got
Is
a
that the
dog
dog?
howling. Yeah,
He's really, he's really.
it's not the soundboard.
Yeah.
Okay, I think he's done. He usually does too.
Yeah.
It's a bit of like a werewolf howl. It's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
on to me. In what moment or at what age did you comprehend your own mortality? How has that impacted your relationship to time and age?
Oh, that's a good one. Give me the page number so I can ponder it.
It's the first bookmark. That is 49.
All right.
For the people listening at home, 40.
This is a
49.
super Lauren question in my view of Lauren, based on the personality Lauren has custom crafted for me to perceive her as.
I think we probably talked about similar things. Maybe that question actually might have come out of some conversations you and I had at Zebulon.
Yeah, I think so too.
Very possible.
Zebulon.
Yeah, check it out, guys.
Check it out.
Down on
For all you East Side LA kids.
Hyperion and
Hyperion.
that other one. Highway 101.
Riverside.
I think when I wrote that question, I thought that I had already really comprehended my mortality. Now I feel like I have a stronger grasp on it. So I think I was deceiving myself in how I understood death as it like personally applies, which is an interesting thing. I think like to have a ebbing and flowing relationship of like being alive and knowing that it's going to end. Sometimes it's like a theory of knowing your life is going to end. And then in other moments of our lives, we like the actuality of like that. And it's just, I think it's bizarre how we can convince ourselves that we're grasping the concept of mortality. And then sometimes you're like, oh no, this is grasping mortality.
Well, Lauren and I kind of talked a lot about how, like in America, there's kind of a different version of mortality. There's so many, I'm trying to remember what exactly we were on to, but for example, being a celebrity is like more of a thing in America than anywhere else, and that kind of implies this idea of immortality. Mm-hmm. And like all of American culture is kind of directed towards not acknowledging that people die in a way, and this kind of came out of us exchanging stories of how we kind of came to the realization that we were mortal, and how I don't know, maybe it's just because of who I am and how I was raised, or because I grew up in Germany the first 11 years, but I never really had like a moment where I was like, oh, I'm going to die one day. It was just always kind of, I just felt like always just kind of acknowledged, like nobody did any pretending that wasn't going to be the case. You know, animals dying and my friend or my family being like very, yeah, it's died, it's dead, you know, and there's like, the cities are full of monuments of people that have died. There's graveyards everywhere. In a way, like death is part of the architecture, the old giant churches, everything is kind of alluding to things dying and decaying. This sounds very negative, but it doesn't have to be, I don't think. It's just like the cycle of life. But it's just way more in Europe. You can just see the presence of time in a way that here you can't. Everything is brand new, perfect square Walmart building. Nothing really has age or doesn't really allude to that cycle. So I feel like I never really had that moment. I'm having a twist on this now, though, as I'm getting older, and what I think is the more difficult version of this, as my family is getting older, and that becomes more of a reality. I've had multiple instances of fuck this little resentment thing I'm having or whatever. I might not have that much time to like go through the motions of having a conflict. Let's just skip over it and just have a, you know, see what positive there is and what connection there is and live through that. And I think that's a much more realizing other people are mortal is much harder than realizing that you're mortal, I think. So I'm dreading that.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Yannick, didn't you say your children's books that you grew up reading, like your guys' fairy tales, were really just kind of dark and straightforward about life?
Yeah, my dad gave me this as a birthday gift or something, which they just terrified me. And he's like, "Oh, check it out! It's a classic." There's this, for example, one of the stories is this. They're all, I guess, what is it? Fables when there's a moral at the end. Is that a fable?
Yep.
They're all little fables, but there's the one about not playing with fire, and it's about this little girl who the parents are out of town, and she's got this beautiful flowing yellow flammable dress, and the parents are like, "Don't play with matches while we're gone," and the girl's like, "All right," and then she plays with matches, of course, as soon as they leave the house, and torches up top to bottom, dies. The parents come home and are like, "Should have listened." It's like, all right, great.
There's no other children's book outside of Germany that would explain a dress as flammable.
I don't know if that's
She had a
verbatim,
great
but it was
flammable dress.
It was very implied. It was very implied. And there's another one. There's another one where a guy about kids shouldn't be rocking on their chairs while they're eating. Of course, the kid does, and he falls backwards and breaks his neck. Parents are like, "Should have listened." It's like, yeah. So the moment of realizing people. Yeah, like that kind of, I guess, explains why I never had the moment of realizing that people die. Like it's like all the kids died in the books. So
Yeah, just have to worry about being a kid. Then I'm okay. Then I'm out of it.
That sounds just like you were growing up with the facts of like you're living, so you'll die, which is way more peaceful than it being like sprung on you. I think growing up with the idea of like forever, and then all of a sudden being like, wait, what do you mean we're finite?
Yeah.
I also think that anti-aging culture, especially in Los Angeles and in Hollywood, is really robbing us from the joy of death. And like death at an old age is a privilege, and it's cool to age, and it's cool to get to experience all the phases of life, and death is the last thing you'll experience. Like it's not only this horrible thing that I think a lot of Western cultures made it out to be. I think my answer is I was around a lot of, or like volunteered in the childhood cancer community when I was young quite a bit. So I like had friends and acquaintances who were dying when I was in elementary school. So that like was my grasp on that. I think when you're young and you know young people die, and you have to be like, I am also their age. I will also die. And then kind of similarly, Yannick, to what you were saying about like it's different when you're comprehending it for the older people in your life too. I've recently this is horrible. I don't think people should do this. I did the math of how many more times I'll see my parents if I continue to see them at the rate that I'm seeing. It's horrible, you guys. But it's also helpful because it makes your time really precious and you view it differently. And I was just home, and I'm not going home as often right now since I'm living in London, and I was just home, and I had like done the math, and I knew the fraction of that amount of time that was my current trip. And I'll tell you what, and I've never spent less time on my phone. I've never been more willing to hear my parents' stories about the neighbors, all of that stuff. Then you just have a different lens on it when you realize like you're already into the single digits or the double digits if you're lucky. Crazy.
That would have been a good one for your book for the Heart Gym. Do the math.
Do the math
on your parents.
Do the math. You add it up. Share it as a Christmas gift. Okay, wait. I have mine. Are we ready?
Yeah.
What emotion do you typically feel immediately after sadness?
See, that's one of the tough ones for me, because when you're living in, I don't want to call it La La Land, but now I am. When you're living in the imagination of like, oh, everything's fun, everything's happy, you don't get to kind of navigate through how you should be when things aren't happy. And it's the double-edged sword of that whole thing that my parents have given me, where I didn't have to worry about them having to try to make ends meet in 2008 recession, or they just made it where they made it a game. Everything was so fun and creative, and I didn't get to see all this shit that actually went down until I was maybe 19, when I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
Like I should have, I don't know. I shouldn't have had anything, but I could have had different emotional experiences if they treated it differently. And navigating through my sadness is, it's a confusing time for me. It's like I can understand when I'm sad, and I can track it down. But as far as what I should do afterwards, I don't really know. I don't think it should be, I've seen it implemented different ways of like, oh, I should just like do something that makes me happy, or I should just forget the whole thing altogether and just keep going. And I like to kind of live in the confusion. Radiohead is one of my favorite musicians. So like I'm the kind of guy that's happy listening to High and Dry and just like in the car, just like everything's fine, everything's great. But giving yourself that time to listen to Radiohead in its truest form of, I am sad and I'm listening to Radiohead. I am sad and I'm listening to Elliott Smith, and just feeling what they're feeling. And I guess that's what I do. I tend to kind of go to music to keep that emotion alive, make me feel it. And then, you know, just like what you're talking about with Hollywood's like anti-aging thing, like giving yourself the ability to know that there's a beginning, middle, and end. And like with aging, like we're not going to be young forever. We need to be able to experience how we are in the middle, how we are in the end. And that goes with the same with emotions. Like you can't fully adjust until you allow you to have a beginning, middle, and end of that emotion. It just can't go straight off to another thing. So music tends to help. Yeah.
I think that makes sense as an artist too. Like to feel your feelings as an artist is kind of the best.
Yeah.
I tend to have pretty pretty high highs and pretty low lows. So when I'm sad and go all the way down the stairs, the next thing right up usually is hope, because like I'm through it. Like at the end of sadness, I'm like, okay, like I've learned a lot and experienced this low, and now it's back up again. It's usually accompanied with a lot of fresh new ideas and perspectives, and I also agree with the thing about being an artist and kind of feeling that out, because some of the like best things that I've created and made as an artist have come from those sad places. So in a weird little masochistic way, I'm usually when I am sad, in my back pocket, I've always been kind of, ever since I decided to pursue something creative, I've always been like rubbing my hands like a little fly, like once I'm out of this, like this is gonna fuel the next thing, which I think is not great, you know, as maybe not the healthiest thing, but it's just the way it is.
But I also think like, I don't know if it's negative to almost be investigative, like of the emotion, because it's not. It's one thing if you're turning every emotion you feel into a product, or you feel like the way you like can kind of like cash out on them. But
that's what makes me kind of feel like it's a bad thing to like commercialize the negative. But I think it doesn't have to be that way. Yeah, I think if you're approaching it the right way, it doesn't have to be a negative thing.
Yeah, and I have to give you, I have to thank you, because some of your words helped me through some of my sadness last year, coming through Yannick. But going through an interesting breakup, Yannick helped me out. We went to a bar, and he was there to talk about it, and he said, quoted you in saying, like, isn't it nice just to have something to feel? Isn't it nice just to feel something? And like that really helped me through that whole process of like, as much as like I felt really shitty, but like I felt something, and it was nice to have those words at that time. And I mean, it came from you, but just from like passed down the chain, the chain
That's
line,
really sweet.
the supply line.
I think that thought for me originated from my brother. So this is like a bigger chain line. But when I was going
playing
through
the phone game. Yeah.
Okay, so it's
when I was going through the
who knows how
toughest
long
breakup
it descends.
I know,
Or
yeah,
what
I
it
should
used to
call
be.
him up. But he phrased it to me as I was just like, so I had never been hopeless before. And I think sometimes like the ending of your first true love, to go back to the beginning, can really like make you feel hopeless. It can like be a crash of ideation and also like of all the things that you believed in, and it's kind of come toppling down. It was so hopeless. And I'm always really concerned about time. I think that's probably why we've talked about mortality so much, Yannick, is like I'm really concerned about having enough time, about life being long enough. And I was just like sobbing on my brother's couch. I flew home and he wasn't really saying much. And then all of a sudden he went, life feels really long right now, doesn't it? And I was like, ugh. And it just kind of reframed what sadness like that, what real sorrow does, which is this, like you're so full of it and time gets like thrown into this weird slow-mo torture, and where everything is so like the feelings are just so hyper, and every little gesture has a meaning and has an implication, which is delicious in a way that we don't usually get to experience. And I also think the single scariest state of being is numb. Like I hate when I don't have feelings or when I feel like sterile. And again, that's probably like artist stuff, right? Like, because you can't really create from that place, and it's a scary place to be in. And sometimes the really unpleasant feelings are at least the antithesis of that.
Yeah. So that is Heart Gym, everybody.
Work out the heart.
Link in the bio.
$9.99.
I
have
think
no idea how expensive it is.
Seeing if we could
Lauren's drinking wine.
I do love, like, this is definitely gonna be in the video cut. I'm just like
it's not even wine, it's carrot. It was carrot juice.
It looks like a fifth.
Carrot vodka. Distilled.
Carrot vodka.
Triple distilled.
Yeah. Who cares what they do, how they do it in the UK?
Yeah.
It's I don't want to know. But that's kind of what I want to talk about. We can kind of segue a little bit into this book, as well as
$14.99.
your $14.99.95 on Amazon. Link in the bio. Every man I know is a man I imagined. Maybe talk about this, and then also go into your travels and the project you're currently trying to do in, is it London, England?
Your bi-coastal project.
London. Yes.
London.
Yeah.
I was right now.
While trying to think of the overarching thing for this, I came up with Lauren the Travel Creative, because looking back at all the projects you've done, it's corny. We're not using it. Unless you guys want to. Come on, give me some. But no, the point being, all the projects you've done have included travel and this traveling commitment. Except I guess Order of Sin, the short film you did, I mean, you still traveled to the desert, to Joshua Tree for it, right?
We did take a bathtub to the desert. Yeah.
And that's the mildest of the travels. You did a play in Kansas.
We did the play was a national tour, so yeah, it stopped in Kansas.
Yeah, and even more locations then. And now you're doing this bi-coastal film, and you just wrote a book for which you essentially, maybe you'll get into that, but essentially traveled for a whole year to make this book in a way. Maybe that's different for you, but it seems like that was part of the decision.
Yeah, that was definitely part of it.
But yeah, so tell us about it.
Yeah. I think like it's still blurry to me, like why I did what I've done recently. But this time last year, I was feeling like a lot of the things in my life were really determined, and that I was working this 9-to-5 at a film company and being the executive assistant, sort of like work your way up role, and working on projects. And I felt like I was just like, I just knew what like the next steps were. And I felt like I really locked in to life in a very determined way. And I kind of freaked out. because it wasn't the life that I had imagined. And I felt like there was so much mess in my life that I hadn't experienced. I felt like I had been very safe and very controlled and well behaved, and had really like bought into the idea of being a good student and a politely behaved female, and then extended that into the rest of my life. And I just wanted to carve out time to fight against that and to try to discover some truths for myself. Not in like, it's not like I'm like bungee jumping off of crazy things, or like I'm not having these insane adventures. I just needed to break the mold of the life that I had created a bit. And part of that for me was questioning how my behavior was like correct by patriarchal standards, and to try on, I'm very used to like outwardly expressing emotion, as we've unpacked, is I that's like my comfort zone, is to tell people I love them and to kind of lay my cards all out on the table. And I was fascinated by the reversal of that, and I wanted to try it on and see what that experience of owning my thoughts solely to myself and owning my emotional experience solely to myself was. And I needed to leave the world I'd created to be able to do that. I needed to be in a place where no one knew me. Just there was a lot of buzz and a lot of energy and a lot of things I felt like I needed to be participating in doing that were distracting from just the solitude of writing and hearing myself. So I sold everything I owned, and here I am living in a weird flat in London for a little bit. And I wrote Every Man I Know Is a Man I Imagined, very much just documenting that process and the people who came in and out of my life. And actually, both of you are in it. There's a little fun feedback. To
Hayden's is very obvious.
I couldn't find mine, actually. I'm still flipping through the pages.
Book.
He's not reading the titles. He skipped right past Hayden's poem.
Well, the funny one with mine is I just made a joke about it on Instagram when you were promoting it. I think it was the book was almost done at the time, or was it already done?
It was done. I added it. I went back and added it just for you.
And I just made a stupid joke saying like, I love books about myself. It's the whole thing of like, you know, that you're so vain, you probably think the song is about you. My dad's favorite joke with that is, the song's about me. And he just gets really excited about it. And it's funny. He's so vain. But I was playing up on that. And then the cool thing is you're like, oh yeah, I'll write a page. And you actually did write a page. For me, I'm part of the little poem book. So
you are in the tapestry.
I appreciate that. Taking the bit and going on.
There was like, I mean, I did it because I thought it was funny, but I also did it because there's like an honesty in including things that are just real and not the like dramatic ups and downs of things too, right? And I think that was like, for me, I was like, oh, if I include this poem about Hayden, who's like, we only have amicable, like peaceful, happy interactions. Like that's
we've talked like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. Unlimited. But my couch is in your, or my chair is in your room, so in your living room, so it's something.
Yep.
Yeah. Half your items. You actually didn't sell everything. Half of them.
The other half went straight to you guys. But it did feel just like a grounding wire amongst like the hyper polarity of the emotions of the rest of the book. Because to me, the book is like me hitting puberty again.
That's cool. And we're always going to be doing it. Like it's just going to be a constant, like, whoa, fuck.
It's a lot.
My voice is just deeper now. Yes. So most of the book is split up into months, 9 months, right?
Mm-hmm. I think it's 9. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's poems for every month that correspond to interactions you had in that month or memories that came to you during that month. We don't know. We will find out
it's
now.
a little ambiguous. Some of them are also not actually from like the last. Some of them are like those months of other years.
Okay.
Or else I would have had like the most jam-packed social months of my life.
It's just a calendar with little.
Yeah, but I loop like emotions with months, very much so in my mind. So some of them are also like things that didn't happen during those months, but they're what I think of during those months.
9 months of poetry, and
Mm-hmm.
then a couple essays on the back on some
Mm-hmm.
fun stuff. I personally loved your degendering chivalry. I thought it was pretty cool. But yeah.
Yeah, Yannick, you and I haven't talked about the book. I just told you were in it, and then I didn't know if you were were happy with the
Deeply
result
upset
of,
with
of how
I do
thought
have
you were
guesses.
I actually don't know. I mean, I marked a couple, particularly one, the gender studies major. No, I'm just kidding. No. I do have a
Unless you have a
couple
degree you're
guesses.
sitting on. Yeah,
Yeah.
I will say Yannick was very gracious because I texted him after I had sent it off, and I said, "I wrote about you. I hope that's okay." And you're very kind about me not asking permission to write about you.
I mean, like I said, that's kind of also my MO with, given the last short I made was essentially that. So
You got some books going. Do you have anything brewing
Yes.
as of now?
Yeah, so the books I just do because for the most part, the books are like smaller projects that I think when you're like working on large films or plays, a book is for me a really great way to like have something that's like achievable because plays and films are like they take so much time and require so many other people. So the books are like kind of a cathartic art practice to just like save my mind. And also I write the poetry books so that my poetry doesn't end up in my scripts. Because I think like the big downfall of my early scripts where they were like really poetic, which is not necessarily the kind of like performance art I want to create. So in a lot of ways, the books are me like draining the stuff that can't end up in the actual
I like that.
work. So I'm working on a play and a film at the moment. So I go to New York in August to workshop a play called All the Animals in the Zoo. And then I'm going to LA in November and we'll be there through March to work on a film called You and I and the Rest of Our Lives.
That is awesome.
That's the current place.
So when you say workshop it, do you have like some actors set up and you're gonna just, or are you going there and finding actors then? What are your plans for that?
I have actors. I have actors.
Sounds so
yeah.
Professional.
So we'll be workshopping and rehearsing in August, and then we're putting up performances of the workshop in September.
Oh, okay.
And actually, some of the actors are local to New York, and then the other ones are from LA. They're flying into New York to stay for a couple of months, which is super cool.
Shit.
Yeah, and my a lighting designer that I love working with is coming in for it, which will be really fun. And it's also like a lot of the people I get to work with on this are actors and creatives that I worked with on the tour. And we've been like waiting for an opportunity to work with each other again. And the tour, we were like all students. We were all students during the tour, which was challenging in its own ways because we were just young and trying to figure it out. So really looking forward to getting to all work together as functional people with like control over our lives and do something a little bit deeper.
The tour being the play that you did a US tour of, right?
Yeah. You guys want to come hang out and work on it with me in New York?
Oh
Come
my
stay
gosh.
with me.
Yes.
I have a tiny studio. We can all fit.
That'd be fun.
I'm very down with that. I would love to see the script though to see if it connects with me, but we'll
Just as a
think
viewer, you need to see the script first.
Down for it, but
really
a few exceptions.
The repeating question for all the guests and how we our overall strategy for the podcast is people will become famous that we have on the podcast, and then in 10 years time a message that we record and then send them, they'll repost and get us streams. So we kind of have a 10-year plan.
Long con. I love it.
Long con. So in a time capsule, a couple words that we will record now and send to you in 10 years.
Okay. Cowboy boots are always a power move.
I imagine you listening to that in 10 years.
You look down.
Got a cowboy boots.
I'm so serious though. Because I like all the time think about like how to make myself show up in physical spaces, how I feel mentally as an artist. Cause then I think I say things more honestly and I create more honest work. And when I wear my cowboy boots, I don't let myself get like railroaded. And I think they're a power move. I think they're cool.
I totally feel it. And it builds the confidence. I somehow know the same experience because my newest work boots, I bought cowboy boots because I was on this like cowboy reality TV show. And so I did it as a gimmick. But I did it, because I think I've explained this before, but not everybody listens to the same podcast, but
almost everybody.
Hi, Dakota. Thank you for listening. Every week, the show was like a 2-month span, and I would get a cowboy attire at this like really fancy cowboy place that was close by my hotel, and I would just buy an article of clothing in the cowboy vein once a week. And then on Monday, I'd show up on set with cowboy boots. Next Monday, I'd show up with like really ratted jeans, cowboy boots. Week after that, I wouldn't tell anybody. I would just like wait until people would notice. But it took about a month until I actually had the hat and I was a full-on cowboy. And they were calling me sheriff. And I was like,
amazing.
But it's the boots, like they give this, because I think for me, it was you need to be confident in cowboy boots. Like you can't just like, oh, I'm just gonna wear some cowboy boots,
hey guys.
You have to strut.
Sandals on those guys. Sandals.
Yeah. And you put the cowboy boots on, and like I feel uncomfortable wearing them, and like, oh no, I'm gonna be presenting myself and wearing cowboy boots. I'm definitely like, this doesn't match my persona, blah blah blah. And then you walk up on set, and then I'm like, oh shit. Like I gotta look like a guy that wears cowboy boots.
Yeah, and you gotta own it.
And it builds my confidence. Yeah,
just from the ground up, man.
Yeah.
This reminds me of, as a cross country kid, Hayden. Maybe you can relate. Earning your short shorts was a thing.
Oh yeah.
Because with short shorts, as a guy especially, if you got chicken legs, you've clearly not been working out. You can't be running around in short shorts. I mean, you can if you want to, but like you can't be going on a run and like, okay. So you kind of earn it. You earn the short shorts. You work up to them. And then one day when you're ready, when you got the thighs, you slap them on.
Yeah. Slap them on.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to do short shorts with cowboy boots and then you'll be truly unstoppable. Just egotistical nightmare with all the power.
Don't tempt me.
Yeah, careful.
Watch out. Any kind of final thoughts in this interview? I think we had a really cool discussion of our emotions and how it relates to us being artists, and we all have very similar ways of dealing with emotions. And I think it comes from being a creator and being an artist. A lot of us navigate those feelings in similar ways. So it's cool that we haven't really talked too much about that in any of our other episodes. So I appreciate you for being the mediator for that conversation. But would you want the audience to have anything to take away from this whole discussion we talked about?
I think the everything we've talked about for me has been based in the epiphany that to survive as an artist, when you haven't necessarily achieved what you define as success, there has to be this like separation of productivity from your art that allows you to live. And all my books are like about that, or about the in-between periods where I was just living before I could create something else again. And I think as artists, we get really used to kind of discrediting the time that we're not spent on set, or like we think we're wasting time if we're like going out and hanging out with friends or living our lives or taking weird jobs. It feels like a distraction from our overall goals. And I think I've started to try to figure out anything about how to do this whole like life of an artist thing. It's to not separate life from art, to realize that like we can't really make the art if we're not also just living our lives. So live your life.
That is so
feel
true.
your feelings.
That's a good point.
I like that. No notes.
It's nice. It's really nice to talk to you both. I miss hanging out. It's been infinitely calm in London, Yannick, without your antics. No one's popped back up in my flat with random garbage.
Okay.
What'd you bring? Cards?
It's for the next episode.
I was doing some collaging. Okay, it was from the garbage. It was wet.
It was nice talking with you, Lauren.
Yeah, same, guys.
We'll get going on New York and LA. I'm so glad that we're invited to all these projects. And
yeah, you literally are. I'm not even kidding. None of that was in jest. It was all serious. So
okay.
I'll send you.
Well, more to come on that.
Yeah, for sure.
We're gonna come in August. Boots
Bye,
up,
guys. Have a good day. Rest of your day. Bye.
I want to just really quick give a shout out to our guy Dakota Capin for being our most dedicated listener.
He has listened to every single episode, and more on the way. We're doing it. We're doing this for you, Dakota.
Yeah, our first follower on our Instagram.
Yep,
legend. Love that guy.
Well, I love this episode of, like, honestly, we don't get to talk much in our podcast, and it was nice to actually kind of open up a little bit more about who we are for all you randos out there who love what we do, and we love you.
And that's also the magic of Lauren. I mean, I feel like Lauren just always draws out interesting conversation and interesting different ways of thinking. And I mean, also when I read her books, I kind of get the same sense. Like, her poetry it's not abstract and scattered necessarily, but I'm like, oh, I've never seen those two words put together, those two thoughts mixed together, and it kind of twists my brain and makes me think about things in a new way.
Well, and it's like I mean, Every Man I Know Is a Man I Imagined it's a poetry book, but like you're almost seeing her figure out these things throughout this year that she's decided to like try to change her life around. And like, I don't know, like I said, we've only talked about 2 or 3 times at party situations and stuff, and it's like you get to see she pours so much of herself in these books. And I want to shout out something that she did in this specific book. Throughout, as you're reading, she has a QR codes. I guess you don't need to see a QR code.
Hayden will describe the QR code to
you. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there's QR codes around, and she puts out Spotify playlists of tunes that you should be listening that would complement poems that she's reading, or it might be what she was listening to at the time.
But it doesn't explain it really.
It was such a great way to like get into the artist's mind of like, I'm actually listening to. It's just another aspect of getting into the poems, and it was cool it was a cool aspect.
And you feel like you kind of, I mean, I do know her well, but I feel like reading her books, you kind of feel like you know her. I mean, you've only seen her 3 times, and I feel like you have more of an insight into Lauren than somebody else you might have only spoken to 3 times, because she's so honest, I think, with her words and her poems, and especially with this one, which has multiple prefaces of her kind of explaining how this is a book she really didn't want to write, because there's like a lot of stuff in there that you might not want like a stranger to know about you, but that's what interesting writing is, I think. And those are the kind of projects that are interesting. If you're uncomfortable making them a little bit, just the right amount, you know you're onto something.
Yeah. And I like what she said at the very end. I love the question of any final thoughts. I've learned that like the any final thoughts questions gets out the best out of people, because they themselves try to wrap around this whole conversation that we had. Yeah. And it's like, I didn't even have to tell you like, hey, could you say in a sentence what we talked about in the last 2 hours? And it's like, all I have to say, any final thoughts. And she, I mean, it was perfect of like allowing yourself to have different outlets of creativity, and like not everything has to be poured into one thing that you love. You can love multiple things. You can go out and volunteer for a music festival for 2 months and come back and do film again. Like you don't have to put all your stuff just because you love film.